If you've been avoiding dates because of the sugar, stop, because you've been given the wrong information, and it's costing you. Dates are roughly 65 to 70% sugar by weight. That part is true. What most people don't know is that they have a glycemic index between 42 and 55, lower than white bread, lower than most breakfast cereals, lower than a bowl of plain rice. A 2022 randomized controlled trial gave type 2 diabetics 60 grams of dates every day for 12 weeks. Blood sugar control didn't worsen, not even in people with diabetes. The food that looks most like a sugar bomb turns out to be one of the safest sweet things you can eat, and that's just the beginning of what the research on dates actually shows. So here's what we're going to cover. First, why the body over 50 responds to dates differently than you might expect, and what's at stake if you're not eating them. Then we're going to go through what 2 dates a day actually does to your digestion, your cholesterol, your blood pressure, your bones, your energy, and your brain. And I'll tell you exactly how to eat them to get the most out of it, including what to pair them with and when. 2 dates every day. Here's what happens. After 50, several things start shifting at the same time, and the problem isn't any one of them. It's that they compound each other. Digestion slows down, not dramatically at first, but enough that constipation becomes a regular inconvenience instead of a rare one. Then cholesterol starts climbing in ways that diet alone doesn't always explain, because the liver becomes less efficient at clearing it with age. Blood pressure follows, creeping upward as the arteries gradually lose their flexibility. Meanwhile, bone density is already declining, sharply for women after menopause, slower but real for men. And underneath all of it, chronic low-grade inflammation is quietly driving most of the conditions people associate with getting older. None of these are dramatic on their own. That's actually the problem, because you don't wake up one morning and suddenly have high cholesterol or brittle bones or a digestive system that doesn't work. It happens over years. Small shifts, gradual accumulation. The people who age well aren't the ones who caught a dramatic warning sign in time. They're the ones who were doing small, consistent things throughout their 50s and 60s that kept those processes from compounding into something harder to manage. 10 years from now, your grandkid's wedding, a family reunion. One of those nights where everyone is on the dance floor and the music is good and the night is still young. You're deciding whether you're someone who gets up and dances or someone who watches from a chair because the joints hurt too much or because the energy just isn't there anymore. Or because somewhere in the back of your mind, you know your body isn't what it was, and you don't trust it the way you used to. That choice doesn't get made at the wedding. It gets made right now, in the years between here and there, in whether you're consistently giving your body what it needs to stay functional, resilient, and strong. That's what this is about. Not a superfood, not a miracle. Just a clear-eyed look at what 2 small fruits a day are actually delivering, and why after 50, the timing matters. So let's get into it. Start with digestion, because this is the one most people over 50 are dealing with quietly and not talking about. Constipation becomes significantly more common after 50. The pace at which food moves through the digestive system slows. Medications that become more common with age slow it further. And most people aren't getting anywhere near the fiber they need. 2 medjool dates contain roughly 3 to 4 grams of dietary fiber. Most of that is insoluble fiber. The kind that doesn't dissolve in water, but instead adds bulk, moves things through, and keeps the digestive system working the way it's supposed to. There's actually a study on this. 21 people ate dates daily for 3 weeks. Compared to when they weren't eating dates, bowel movement frequency increased significantly. No laxatives, no discomfort. Just consistent, meaningful improvement from a piece of fruit. This is where it becomes more than a digestion story. When the gut is moving efficiently, everything downstream works better. Nutrient absorption improves. Inflammation in the digestive tract decreases. The research connecting gut health to immune function, to brain health, to cardiovascular risk, that body of evidence keeps growing. Fixing the gut isn't just about comfort, it's foundational. Which leads to the next thing. And this one has some of the strongest human data on dates I've come across. Cholesterol. A clinical study followed 60 geriatric patients, all with borderline high LDL, over 6 months. They ate 20 to 35 grams of dates daily. That's roughly 2 to 3 dates. By the end of 6 months, LDL levels in the blood had dropped significantly. These weren't people on a special diet. They weren't exercising more. The dates were the variable. To understand what that actually means, LDL is the type of cholesterol that oxidizes and sticks to artery walls. It's the one that gradually narrows the passages blood moves through, and it does it slowly enough that most people have no idea it's happening until something goes wrong. A meaningful reduction in LDL from 2 to 3 dates a day isn't a small thing. It's addressing one of the central mechanisms behind heart disease. There's more. A 6-week randomized trial found that participants eating ajwa dates daily saw total cholesterol drop by 22 milligrams per deciliter and triglycerides fall by more than 15. And a 2025 meta-analysis that pooled data from 4 separate studies, nearly 300 participants total, confirmed that dates significantly reduce total cholesterol. That's not one study. That's a pattern across multiple trials pointing in the same direction. The fiber is part of why. Soluble fiber binds to cholesterol in the digestive tract and pulls it out before it can be absorbed. The polyphenols in dates add another layer, reducing oxidative stress on the artery walls themselves. Now, blood pressure. And this one connects directly to the sugar myth we dismantled at the start. The potassium. Per gram of fruit, medjool dates contain roughly twice the potassium of bananas. Bananas are the food everyone thinks of for potassium. Dates beat them. And potassium matters enormously after 50 because of what it does to sodium. Most people's diets run high in sodium, and sodium raises blood pressure by pulling water into the bloodstream and increasing the pressure against artery walls. Potassium counteracts that directly. It helps the kidneys excrete sodium, relaxes blood vessel walls, and reduces the strain on the heart. Most adults get less than half their recommended daily potassium. 2 dates starts closing that gap in a meaningful way. Packaged alongside magnesium, which independently supports healthy blood pressure by helping blood vessels stay flexible. 3 systems, 1 fruit, and we're just getting started. Bone health is the one most people over 50 are quietly worried about, but rarely doing anything targeted about, partly because it's invisible until it isn't. You don't feel your bones weakening, there's no symptom. Bone density loss is a slow, silent process that accelerates after 50 for most people, and dramatically so for women after menopause. The first time many people find out their bones are in trouble is after a fracture. And by then, years of density have already been lost. The thing most people miss about dates and bone health, it's not one mineral doing the work. It's the whole stack. Dates contain calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, manganese, and copper, all in meaningful amounts. These minerals work together in the process of building and maintaining bone structure. Magnesium helps the body actually use calcium. Without sufficient magnesium, calcium intake alone doesn't translate into bone density the way it should. Copper supports the formation of collagen, which is the protein scaffolding that gives bone its flexibility and resistance to fracture. And the potassium we covered in the last section has a direct effect on bone too. When potassium levels are low, the body becomes more acidic, and it compensates by pulling calcium out of the bones to manage that acidity. More potassium means less calcium being stripped from your skeleton for a job it shouldn't have to do. 2 dates aren't a replacement for calcium supplementation if your doctor has recommended it, but they're delivering several of the supporting minerals that calcium depends on to actually do its job. Stay with me here, because the energy piece connects to something most people chalk up to just getting older. Dates contain iron, quite a lot of it actually. Per gram, they have roughly 4 times the iron of bananas. Iron is essential for producing the red blood cells that carry oxygen to every tissue in the body. When iron is low, and low iron is remarkably common in older adults, particularly women, the result is a kind of fatigue that doesn't respond to more sleep. You rest and still feel drained. You finish a normal day and feel like you ran a marathon. That persistent, bone-deep tiredness that people assume is just aging is very often at least partly an oxygenation issue. I talked to someone once who had been tired for the better part of 2 years. She'd adjusted her sleep, cut caffeine, tried everything she could think of. Turned out her iron was borderline low, not dramatically low, just enough to drag on her energy throughout the day. She started eating 2 dates every afternoon alongside a handful of almonds. 3 weeks later, she described it as the first time she'd felt like herself in years. Now, I'm not telling you dates fixed a clinical deficiency, but the iron they provide, iron the body absorbs well, packaged alongside natural sugars and B vitamins for energy metabolism, makes them one of the better afternoon snacks for someone whose energy has been quietly declining. And this connects to the brain. The plant compounds concentrated in dates, flavonoids, phenolic acids, carotenoids, have demonstrated anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects in brain tissue. An animal study found that dietary supplementation with dates reduced brain inflammation in mice specifically bred to develop Alzheimer's-like changes. That's preclinical research, and I'll be honest about what that means. Animal studies don't always translate cleanly to humans, but the mechanism makes sense. Chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the central drivers of cognitive decline, and dates are consistently delivering compounds that push back against that process. So what does that actually mean day to day? It's not a dramatic effect you'll notice after a week. It's the same long-game argument we've been making throughout this video. A consistent daily source of anti-inflammatory compounds, sustained over years, keeps the environment in the brain less hospitable to the kind of damage that eventually shows up as memory loss, cognitive fog, and declining sharpness, bones, energy, brain. 3 more reasons, and they all connect back to the same 2 fruits. 2 dates a day is the amount the research supports, not 10, not a bowlful. 2, which works out to roughly 40 to 50 grams depending on the variety. Medjool dates are the most widely available and the most nutrient-dense. Diglett Noor are smaller and slightly less sweet if you prefer a milder option. Either works. When you eat them matters less than you might think, but there's a case to be made for the afternoon. Energy naturally dips in the mid-afternoon for most people. The post-lunch lull that sends a lot of people toward caffeine or something sweet from a vending machine. 2 dates with a small handful of almonds or walnuts handles that window cleanly. The natural sugars give you the lift. The fiber from the dates and the fat and protein from the nuts slow the absorption and extend it. You get sustained energy without the crash that follows processed sugar. Pairing matters if blood sugar is a concern for you. Eating dates alone on an empty stomach will release their sugars faster than eating them alongside fat or protein. A few nuts, a spoonful of nut butter, a small piece of cheese, any of these slow the blood sugar response down further. For most people, the glycemic impact of 2 dates is already low enough that it won't be an issue either way. But if you're managing diabetes or insulin resistance, pairing is the smarter move. A few things worth being upfront about. If you have kidney disease, talk to your doctor before adding dates regularly. Dates are high in potassium, and while that's beneficial for most people, those with impaired kidney function need to monitor potassium intake carefully. When buying dates, look for naturally dried or fresh-dried options without added sugars or preservatives. Some packaged dates are treated with sulfites, which can trigger reactions in people with sensitivities. The ingredient list should say one thing: dates. And if you're currently on a very low carbohydrate diet, 2 dates a day adds roughly 35 to 40 grams of carbohydrates, worth knowing and accounting for. It doesn't make dates bad, it just means they fit differently depending on your approach. Now, here's where I want to bring this back to where we started. You came into this video having avoided dates or barely thinking about them because they seemed like too much sugar. You now know what that sugar is actually doing inside the body. You know what the fiber is doing, what the minerals are doing, what the research across multiple human trials is actually showing. 2 dates a day. It costs almost nothing. It takes no preparation. It requires no lifestyle overhaul. And for a piece of fruit, the evidence behind it is genuinely impressive. So go get a bag of dates. Put 2 on your kitchen counter for tomorrow afternoon. Pair them with something you already eat. That's the whole ask. If this video gave you something useful, hit subscribe. There's more of this kind of research-backed content on the way, and I'd love to have you along for it. Take good care of yourself.